I don't know what we can talk about in this nation without talking about white superiority, honestly.
Who defines the meaning of God also defines the relationship between economy and God.
African Americans spent $1.3 trillion last year, making us the 16th wealthiest nation in the world. Why have we not turned those riches into wealth to develop our community?
Peace, everyone. My name is Tiye, and I'm your host tonight for this special edition of HAPI Talks. We have with us tonight, I like to call him one of our resident scholars. We have many scholars, but definitely one of our resident scholars here at HAPI Talk, Dr. Runoko Rashidi, talking about the women in antiquity, very important topic. But before we go into that topic, I'd like to just really, give a special shout out to the support we've received from the community. See Donnell Peoples already with the super chat. Thank you, Donnell. Shout out to Donnell. It's been so much love and support from so many people. John Avery Staples, Michelle Joel. And I'm sorry, I apologize right away for just really forgetting people's names or not mentioning you. I really don't take it any type of way. Definitely the love and support is real. And, from Felicia and I, we really, really appreciate that. Definitely want to give a shout out to Felicia for really keeping these HAPI Talks going. It's really important that we do this and stay consistent. So support is such a tremendous thing, and we receive so much so much support and love from the elders and the scholars in our community. And we did this HAPI thing. We wanted to kind of really right the ship and bring that information back to the masses of people. There's so much information out there, and there's so much misinformation out there. And HAPI Talks definitely want to be the trendsetter in terms of providing accurate, precise information. So with that, we have brothers like Dr. Runoko Rashidi, Professor James Small, and Fudishi, Dr. Rosalind Jeffries, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, and the list goes on and on and on. And definitely love and respect for all of them there. And so important that we keep this going. With that said, family, please just take a moment and just go ahead and like this video. Please share it. It's very important that we break through these algorithms. It's really kind of difficult sometimes to get the numbers that we need. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. So essentially important. And like we always say, with this thing of HAPI Talks is something that we just kind of, because really, we're here along for the ride. And it's really important to understand that. This all began with, the HAPI film. And if you don't have your copy, please do so now. You can get it immediately by going to our website and get a digital copy, or if you just want a DVD, the DVDs are also available. It's a remarkable piece of work. Got to give a shout out to Tahuti Films. My brother Seed Haru did a fantastic job and co-producing this film. Please check this out. You won't be disappointed. But family, like I said, with that, there's other things. If you want to show your support, there's other ways we can do it. And throughout the interview, we'll be talking about that. However, without any further ado, we're going to introduce our great brother and esteemed elder, Dr. Runoko Rashidi.
Oh, that was a quick and lengthy and comprehensive introduction there, brother. I don't know if anybody's ever, I'm joking. Anyway, I'm delighted to be here. It's always, it's an honor to be on HAPI Talks. We really appreciate, and when I said we, I think I speak for many, many, many people, the work that you all are doing. Now, tonight's presentation, because I'm going to give a presentation and you can interrupt me whenever you want. And I encourage people in the course of the evening, if you feel so moved, to donate to HAPI Talks, the HAPI movement. Tonight is a special presentation, and it focuses on Black women in antiquity. And I'm going to dedicate this presentation, with your kind permission, to Sister Felicia. Not only is she a Black woman, but she's a beautiful Black woman. I don't know if you're supposed to say that in these days of political correctness and the Me Too movement, but she's so beautiful. But not only that, she's so brilliant, which she is. But more than anything, she gives so much. What you and Sister Felicia do is priceless. And it's an honor to be on this show. And I want everybody to hear me say that. I know you guys give so much. So tonight we're going to give praise to one of our greatest Black women, and that is Sister Felicia. And I'm going to, give it up. I'm going to show some photographs. I hope to throw down, give a serious presentation. And of course, I'm promoting my webinar this weekend, which is called Journey to Nubia. And we want people to partake. So let's see if we can.
Dr. Rashidi, before you,
photographs. Yeah, go for it, bro.
Before you get started, I just want to add on to something. You know, I like to keep the intro short because it's about you.
Oh, I was just kidding, man. Come on, be
No,
serious.
That's important because that's really what this program, this platform is to bring the people who have the information to the people. You know, and you know, we want to salute you and all the work that you've done throughout the years. Mm-hmm. You and your colleagues, and really that's the evidence of this discussion. And with that, I'm sorry for interrupting you, and I know you have
No, we're brothers. We're just talking, man. And I want to give that feeling to the community that we're just talking about our history. Now, I have one thing going above all other things. I love what I do. It's hard work, and it's tedious, and sometimes it's frustrating, and a lot of times I think I speak for you and me and a lot of us, we don't feel like we get the support that we really deserve. But I absolutely 1000% love what I do. And one of the things that comes forth out of the research that I do is the role. Not only do I love Black women, and I love to lift them up and exalt them, because I think when you uplift a Black woman, you uplift the entire community. But their role in history far overshadows their contemporaries in other parts of the world. I cannot tell you the names of great women in the Mayan world or in the realm of the, what is the group? The Inca. I can't tell you about great women in the history of China or Vietnam, and even for Europe for that matter. But when it comes to Africa, these sisters really, really threw down. And so I think it's very important that our community, sisters and the brothers, hear this information from strong Black men. We say, we love you, we need you, we can't live without you. You're an important part of the community. We respect you, we adore you, we revere you, and we are here from you. We are here for you. And so tonight's presentation is just kind of puts all that in, I'm gonna show it to you. Let's see if I can get some pictures. And you can interrupt me at any time. All right. Let's see if we could do this. Can you see that, my brother?
Yes, sir.
All right. I've made every conceivable mistake on Zoom at StreamYard, but I've gotten pretty comfortable with it. So let's just show some photographs. Let's have the maxim, seeing is believing, and a picture is worth 1,000 words. This takes us to the most remote phases of Kemet. This takes us to the first dynasty. Of course, a dynasty is simply a family of rulers, one coming after the other. And this would take us back, let's say 5,000 years ago. And obviously this is not an image of a woman, but it's her, what shall we say, insignia, her seric. During the first dynasty, you have the rulers or the monarchs who come from the south or the upper part of Kemet, and they come to the north, and there's a union between the two lands. And the first king that we know of is Narmer or Ahamena. Some people say Ahamena comes after Narmer or Menes. And then you have a figure, I think his name is Jur. Now, D-J-E-R. Now, Jur has a wife named Mernite, who becomes a kind of a queen regent after him, perhaps even a pharaoh or king in her own right. Her tomb, which I think is in Abydos, I'm not sure, is larger than most of the tombs of the kings of the first dynasty of Kemet. And Sir Mernite may, in all probability, or if there's a good chance, that she is the first female reigning monarch that we know of in history. at least in Kemet. So this is for Mernite, M-E-R-N-E-I-T. This is in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. And then this one I really like a lot. I love to see a black man and a black woman together. I'm not prepared to compromise on that one. This is very, very important. We need each other. With all the baggage that we bring to the table, I would contend that we need each other to heal. And so this is a piece from the Pyramid Age, the 4th dynasty, about 2550 BC, almost perfectly preserved, that shows a black man and a black woman together. A king of Kemet by the name of Menkaure and his queen, Kemer-Ernepti II. Of course, this is in the Boston Museum. They look happy, they look content. And here's another variation of that. This is in Cairo. I'll just go through here quickly. And as I say, you can stop me anytime. This one is from the 4th dynasty too. Now notice, whenever I do a presentation, it's almost inevitable that I'm going to start at the beginning and work my way towards today. With the maxim, the African proverb, if you know the beginning well, the ending will not trouble you. This is another image of a sister, also in Boston, in the Pyramid Age, the 4th dynasty, the height of the Pyramid Age. And this also gives me a chance to show off my work. These are my treasures. These are images that I've photographed in the various museums of the world. This one takes us to Dynasty 6. One of these is a queen named Akhenaten Pepi II. And another is the female aspect of God called Hedheru or Hathor, who personified femininity. And this is from Dynasty 6. And then here we find in Dynasty 11, now this is about 4,000 years ago, we find Queen Ashayet. And Ashayet is important for the major reason she is important is because it's beginning at this time. These are the first known examples that I'm aware of, her and her husband, Mentuhotep II, that the color black is used in ritualistic fashion. We know that these were African people. We know they were black people. But the color black also has a symbolic value. And I think that this image shows us, based on my researches, that by this time, at least, black was the color of God. It represented rejuvenation and renewal. And so here's Queen Ashayet. This is in the Cairo Museum. And here she is again. Here, this is a head of a female sphinx. All these early images are from Kemet, and this is in the Brooklyn Museum. And I suppose at some point in time, if you all haven't done it, we should have a good discussion. Maybe I get together with my brother Karak, Tony Browder, and talk about the nose, maybe brother Mfundishi, and talk about the noses on the statues and what it represents when the noses are missing. There's so many theories and so many beliefs. Anyway, this is from Dynasty 12. This is my favorite historical period. And this one takes us to what is called the second intermediate period. This will be around Dynasty 16 or 17. This is a sister in the center named Nubkes. And Nubkes is important to us because she is a part of the liberation struggle to kick the Hyksos invaders out of Kemet. Egypt or Kemet had been invaded about 1600 BC or so, a little earlier than that, closer to 1700. And the Hyksos, the invaders and occupiers, occupied Kemet for about a century. And the African royal family, which had retreated into the southern part of the country, ultimately, generation by generation, kicks the Hyksos out. They drive them farther and farther north and eventually boot them out altogether. And there were women who were very important parts of that process. Our sisters. Yes.
I just want to ask you a quick question. Going back to the 11th dynasty, and Ashayet, would that happen to be the wife of, would that happen to be the wife of Mentuhotep?
One of his wives. Now, Mentuhotep II, as I understand it, had 7 wives. And this is probably the most prominent of those wives. So yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just wanted, his significance in terms of just the telling of the story and how the role these people had such a central part of what we're talking about. Okay.
You mean Mentuhotep II?
Yes.
He's one of my favorite rulers. There's only one king in the history of Kemet that I enjoy more than Mentuhotep II, and that is Namare Amenemhet III in the 12th dynasty. But I should have put it, in fact, I should have put one of his images in this presentation. For those of you all who attend the webinar this weekend, I'll show one. But you know, there's that magnificent statue of him in Cairo, painted black with the crown of Lower Egypt or Lower Kemet. And I found two other black ones of him, one in particular in a museum in Hanover, Germany. But Mentuhotep II, Nepepet Ra Mentuhotep II, as you know, is considered the second national hero of Kemet. He is the one whose family unified Kemet for the second time. So I could easily call him Mentuhotep the Great. I believe that he reigned for 49 years. And he is a bad, bad, bad brother. I think that some of the work that our brother Tony Browder is doing in Kemet is, in fact, I think the tombs that he's excavating are very close to the mortuary temple of Mentuhotep II himself.
Sir. Okay, thank you for that.
Anything you want to add?
No, I'm just, I wanted to just, we were talking about, for me, I'm always a big proponent of telling the story and putting it in the context. And when you think about the, as the great, I can't think of the brother's name right now. Father Jake Carruthers talk about the Hemingway Sioux, the Great Awakening.
Yeah.
And that period of the 11th dynasty coming back and reunifying Kemet and what that signified for African people is such an important part of the story. And this sister here obviously played an important role in that period. And I just wanted to just put a pin in that, in that piece there, so people understand that, it was invaders came in and these Africans came together to unify the country and defeat them. So an important part of our legacy and our story.
My brother, you can interrupt me. You can stop me at any time. You are
No.
an esteemed, no. You are an esteemed scholar, and I learn a lot from you. And I pride myself on being a student. So we're having a conversation. So don't hesitate to say, Runoko, stop. Wait a minute. Hold on. Could you elaborate? I want to add all that. That would please me very much. Okay. So don't hesitate, my brother.
Okay.
Asha Etz. And we were talking about, here you go, another sister who plays a similar kind of role, I think you could say. This is in the center, Queen Tetisheri. And Tetisheri is an important figure in the late 17th dynasty. Now Kemet is about to be unified again for the third time. And so this sister, Tetisheri, in the middle, seated back to back, is flanked on both sides by her grandson, Amos I. And it is Amos I and his wife, Amos Nefertari, who unified the country for the third time that we know of, about 1560 BC. And this was apparently in the tomb of Tetisheri, and it's Amos I making offerings to her. And the story goes, before they put this slab, this relief, the stela in the tomb, the husband and wife had a conversation about it. And they both agreed that they should honor their grandmother. I love that. If you were to ask me, Runoko Rashidi, how did Nile Valley civilization last for so long? I would say more than any other factor, the close family bonds. And I think it's so important. When we talk about Sankofa, meaning to reach back and retrieve and fess the things that made us great. And that close family relationship is just, hey, we can't put enough emphasis on it. Anyway, this is Tetisheri. We're about 1560 BC now. I know you like your dates.
Yeah, with Tetisheri, I mean, one of the things we celebrate her, actually, I almost celebrate her as being not only, the great queen, but also a warrior. And I believe she actually, we go to the Cairo Museum, you can see the weapon she used to fight the Hyksos. If you can just add on to that, elaborate on that a little bit, please.
No, I want to show you another sister that we can use to illustrate that point. This is the daughter of Tetisheri, and this is Ahotep. Now, Ahotep, I know for a fact led troops into battle. I know that for a fact. I don't know what weapons she used, but she was using something. And this is the actual, apparently, mother of Amos the First and Amos Nefertari. So you have generations, let's go to the next one, of African women in this period that stand out. I mean, they're historical figures. You have Tetisheri, who we were talking about. And then you have Ahotep. And then you have maybe the greatest of that line, and that's Amos Nefertari, who is so significant that she is actually deified. You know the story. She and her son, Amenhotep I, built a city for the workers, the ones who took care of the tombs and the temples. And as a result of that, Amos Nefertari, who you see here, and her son, Amenhotep I, they were revered as the patrons of what is sometimes called the Theban necropolis for hundreds and hundreds of years. So imagine that. 3 generations, if I may say, of badass African women who led troops into battle, who were deified, who we still talk about today. And here she is in Hanover, Germany, painted black, the color of God. Now, how about that for a story for African people? Our history not only doesn't start with slavery, but we must look at the role that women have played in our historical narrative. And not only that, but this is just a beautiful piece of art. Even if you say, Runoko Rashidi, you're talking too much, look at this beautiful piece of art. This is over 3,000 years old. How did they preserve those colors like that? Yeah, so. And then here she is again. You can see that the black paint is faded. And this is in another museum in Germany. The Germans have a lot of stuff. One day, I don't know, maybe next month or whenever y'all have time to squeeze me in, maybe I could do a presentation on African images in the art museums of Europe. I've already done a piece on the British Museum, but maybe we could do a general one. For example, this is in a museum, an Egyptian museum in Turin, Italy. The Italians got a lot. The Germans got a lot. None of the British and the French did. So all these are of Amos Nefertari and her son Amenhotep I. And this is now look here. Amos Nefertari and Amos I began the 18th dynasty, about 1560 BC. Here you are with them in the 19th dynasty. The figure that you see with the kind of black hair, that's Seti I. This is around 1290 BC, so at least 270 years after their physical death, 250 years at least. This king and his mother are still being honored by the greatest king or the most significant king perhaps in the world. That's very powerful to me. Okay. All these, I could show you these all day long. Now here apparently is when Amenhotep I is very young, and that's Amos Nefertari in front. And then here's the daughter of Amos Nefertari. And then you have the other one, the one that it all culminated in, and that's Makare Hatshepsut, who was literally a female king. And of course, I think that we could use a better choice of words. Perhaps those words come out of the European context. But what do I mean by that? Her father was a king. Her father's name is Thutmose I. Now we're talking about, 1500 BC or so. So her father is Thutmose I. He marries into the family. And then she's married to a king, a brother named Thutmose II. Okay. And then when Thutmose II dies, her nephew, Thutmose III, would have normally assumed the role of king. But Kemet had just been through the Hyksos occupation, and they weren't going to put the fortunes of the country in the hands of a child. And so Queen Hatshepsut steps into the role of queen regent, but soon more or less declares herself a king. She says that her true father was God Amen, who came down from the heavens and impregnated her mother, and therefore she had the divine right to rule. She reigns for about 20 years. So just once again, let's just review. You got Tetisheri, you got Ahotep, You got Amos Nefertari, and then Hatshepsut. How could you not respect African women just based on this historical narrative right here? And here she is in the form of Sphinx. And again, one more time, I have a lot of these. And of course, if you go to Luxor, this is one of the must-sees. This is a temple, the mortuary temple, not tomb, but mortuary temple of Hatshepsut at Deir el-Bahri. And you have an image here of the king and queen of the land of Punt. Punt is in the Horn of Africa. Another one of Hatshepsut. One more time. I can't get enough. And then this, we're going to skip a few generations, but we're still in the 18th dynasty. Now we come to, let's say, 1400 BC. And this is the Lady Tiye. Tiye also is, we should point out, is not of royal birth, but she is very, very important in the household. Look at the braids, look at that hair. This is made of wood. This is in the Musée du Louvre in Paris. And she is important particularly because she is the mother of Queen Tiye, or Queen Tiye. And Queen Tiye is the wife of Amenhotep III, Amenhotep the Magnificent, the mother of Akhenaten, the mother-in-law of Nefertiti, and is believed to be the grandmother of Tutankhamun. So let's look at some images of this bad sister. When I say bad, I mean good. Let's go back for a second. This one, this is one of my favorites, is in Brussels, Belgium. And there she seems to be a kind of a young sister. And this is in Paris. There are more images of Queen Tiye than any single female figure in the history of Kemet, more than Cleopatra, more than Nefertiti, etc., more than Nefertari. Look at this one. Serious looking sister. In fact, kind of reminds me of Sister Felicia a little bit. This is in London. This is in Cairo, Florence, Italy. And that's the one right there. I mean, Asa Hilliard, our brother, used to love this. And what's not to love? This is an image of Queen Tiye, T-I-Y-E. I believe I've measured it, and it's about only 5 inches high. It's very small. It sits in a glass case in the Neuss Museum of Berlin, in Berlin. And this is an African woman, Queen Tiye, at the height of ancient Kemet, arguably when Kemet was at its very height. Look at this one, just a fragment of her face. Even that looks good.
Dr. Rashidi,
Yes.
that last bust, the infamous one, we know the Germans have it now. Do you know where they discovered it in Kemet?
It's from a place called Medinet Gurab. And so this would have been on the west bank of Luxor.
Okay.
All right. So that's where it's from. And it's made of wood and something like, almost like polychrome. Now this is about, let's say 3,500 and 7,500, 3,575 years old. And it looks like it was made yesterday. These people really demonstrated genius in their art. One of the daughters, you can see the face has been mutilated. This is the torso of Nefertiti. This is in Paris. Another one of Nefertiti. I'm not going to show you the one of Nefertiti that you're used to seeing in Cairo. She is the wife of Akhenaten. That one, I don't know how we got in there twice. I must just like it that much. Here's another one of Queen Tiye and Amenhotep III. What good is a king without a queen? This is in a museum in Lisbon, Portugal. And I like to show this photograph right here to compare it to two of the daughters of Amenhotep III and Queen Tiye. And these sisters, these are schoolgirls in Ghana. And for some reason, I always link those two together. To me, these are just adorable children. And you notice, and of course you know this, by the way, James Small and Lynn Jeffries and I are doing a joint tour to Ghana from July 18th to the 3rd. And then after that, I'm going to take a group to Egypt. So the three of us, for the first time, are going to travel together and lead a group of Africans through Ghana. We're going to lecture every day. I asked James about it. He says, Runoko, we lecture every night. We're gonna go into the north, near the border. I've never done this before. I've been to Ghana many times. We're gonna go north to the border of Burkina Faso and journey south, and we're going to look at the slave encampments. What I'm learning is that the majority of Africans who died as a result of enslavement died in Africa from the time they were captured and traumatized and marched to the coast. And I'm not sure if those numbers are figured into the casualties or the people that we lost in what is called the transatlantic slave trade. So everybody who's interested in that, contact me, Runoko@hotmail.com. It'll be posted on my website in a day or two. Don't forget the webinar this weekend, but these are two adorable girls in Ghana. And the point I was making is that they make them keep their haircuts short in the schools in Ghana and many parts of Africa until they're about 15 or 16. And they just have natural beauty.
So I just want to go back for a second.
Where are we going back to?
Well, first thing we want to just talk a little bit about this trip. We want to make sure that we give it the proper love it deserves. So that's the email address right there. Anyone who wants to go on a trip, just send you an email.
Yeah, most definitely. We just finalized it. And so literally, I haven't even put it on my website. We have an African travel agency that we're using. And this is for African people, and we're going to Ghana. You're going to go through the dungeons, but you're going to also shop. You're going to have some fun. You're going to get a lot of knowledge, and you're going to have the trip of a lifetime. It's July 18th to the 2nd of August, and it also coincides with Panafest, the conference that will be at the end. So it's going to be really a unique travel experience.
So we just want to put the dates up here.
July 18th to the 2nd of August.
Okay, do we have a price?
The price is about $4,700 double occupancy. It's like a 14-day trip and the trip to the north. But it looks like it's safe to travel to Ghana now, and hey, it's going to be great. You know, James and Lynn, Dr. Jeffries, Professor Small and Dr. Jeffries, they have a tour, I think, every year. And I've been wanting to go back to Africa, so I planned a trip to Ghana. I thought about, hey, why not Ghana? Who doesn't love Ghana? And then I said to myself, why should we compete with each other? I told the travel agent, Sister Sharifa at Africa Dreamers, I said, what about the possibility of combining the tours? I said, it would be a great honor for me to do a tour with Dr. Jeffries and Professor Small. And she said, well, I'll ask them. And they said, well, yeah, it sounds good to me. And so I love the idea of the scholars working together rather than seeming to be rivals and competing with each other. It seemed like a natural thing to do and a way to put the things we talk about into practice and not just talk about them when we get on HAPI Talks.
Okay, one more last thing. You also said that you're going to Kemet afterwards. Just want to elaborate on that piece a little bit.
Yeah, I'm going to leave. Now, those who just want to do the Kemet tour, they can meet me in Cairo. I'm going to fly on Egypt Air, God willing, inshallah, from Accra to Cairo, and I will meet the people there. And if you want to, you can do both tours. You can do Ghana and Egypt with none other than Runoko Rashidi. Now, Kemet is a big draw for me right now, in particular, because it looks like the new Egyptian museum is going to be open. And a museum fanatic like me, hey, I'm going to really spend some quality time in that museum. We're going to go to some sites that a lot of people don't go to. I'm going to take you to the first known examples of martial arts. I'm going to take you to the Bani Hassan tombs. And this is even before the ones at Medinet Habu. And in addition to that, the tomb chamber of Djoser is open, I understand, for the first time. I've been going to Egypt since 1991, and the tomb chamber designed by Imhotep now is open to the public for the first time. So those will be some of the big draws for the Ghana and Egypt trip. I'm hoping that their energy will be all ready to go after we've been locked down, and that we will have trips that we'll never forget.
Okay. Now, you just can't say like Zoza, and you got to talk about that a little bit. The significance of that pyramid, like it's so important. Like you got to talk about that a little bit.
Well, Zoser's pyramid, designed by the multi-genius Imhotep, is the first pyramid that we know of, and it's also the world's first large stone building, and it's in Africa. If you see it, you can see why we call it the Step Pyramid. And all the times I went to Egypt with Dr. Ben, we would go to it, but we can never go inside it. And so now the tomb chamber is open. And I'll tell you something else I want to do. Now, you may have done this because I've seen some of the footage you shot in Egypt, and it's phenomenal. So you may have done this, but I've never done it. There's another tomb that I want to visit on the in Saqqara they call it the Doctor's Tomb. And every time I've been there, I've heard, well, you can't get in now. I'm going to really make a concerted effort to get in there. Why? The Doctor's Tomb dates to the 5th dynasty, let's say 2500 BC, around the same time as Tahotep and those other illustrious figures. But in this one, you actually have a tomb, apparently, of a physician. And it shows a physician doing circumcisions on African boys. It's a tomb that we can say is an important part of our knowledge of medical science in ancient Africa. And then we're going to go to the pyramids at Meidum and Dashur. And of course, we're going to go to Abydos. And we're even going to visit, God willing, Brother Tony's excavations in Luxor. So it's going to be a phenomenal trip. I don't take a lot of people on my tours. I suspect that we're going to have a small group of about 10 or 15 people, and we're going to have the time of our lives.
Phenomenal. It's definitely phenomenal. Okay, so your webinar also this weekend. Could you talk a little bit about that?
The webinar is called, it's the third of a 3-month series called Return to the Nile Valley. And this particular webinar, Friday and Saturday, is called A Journey to Nubia. And on the Friday session, we're going to start with the 20th dynasty, about 1100 BC. And we're going to begin with the reign of Ramses III. We've already gone through the previous dynastic periods. And we're going to go from Ramses III. We'll talk about the 3rd intermediate period. Then we're going to talk about the period of Nubian domination of Kemet. We're going to look at the 26th dynasty and the last dynasties, including the 30th dynasty. We're going to look at the African presence in the Ptolemaic period. We're going to look at Africans in Roman Egypt. And then on Saturday, we're going to go to Nubia itself. And we will trace, or we will follow the ancient kingdoms of ancient Nubia. We're going to put a lot of emphasis on the Napatan period and also the period of Meroe. And then we're going to talk about the early Christian kingdoms in the Nile Valley and the rise of Christianity in the Nile Valley. And I'm going to finish by showing this image of the Coptic Christ or the Black Christ. And I'm going to put that in the context of the way Christ was portrayed in Africa and even Southern Europe at that time. So it's going to be very, very powerful. I'm looking forward to it. If you're interested, all you have to do is go to Eventbrite and type in the name Runoko. It will come up. Yes, there is a small stipend, but that's your way of giving back. That's your way of supporting the scholars who are trying to do this work. And people should be glad to do it for the information that they're going to get. And then, of course, you can always reach me at runoko@hotmail.com. But the tours, I'm excited about. And, of course, the webinar, I'm excited about that, too. Now, next month, in the middle of April, we're going to have what we call a conversation. We had one in February with Sister Baina Bello about the Haitian Revolution. This time, we're going to have a young, bad Nubian scholar, a brother named Samir Abbas. He's handled both of my trips to Sudan. This brother is absolutely brilliant. And so we're going to have a conversation with him. He's in Barcelona now. I just mentioned this one thing. We were talking a couple weeks ago, and somehow the story of Cleopatra VII came up. And we started talking about the Ptolemaic dynasty and the Roman period and how the Africans influenced that. And he told me he had found recent documentation that there were they recently found the remains of 30 temples of Aset or Isis in Southern Europe during the Roman period. That this sister was so bad, this African goddess, that they found the remains of 30 temples to her in Europe during the Roman world. And that is how Africa influenced the entire world. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how the image of Aset was incorporated through Coptic Egypt and Coptic Christianity and spread through the rest of Europe. That's what we're going to do this weekend in the webinar.
All right, people, you heard it. Go sign up, eventbrite.com, put in Runoko.
Type in Runoko, R-U-N-O-K-O.
And get your tickets and be a part of it this weekend. You mentioned something about Nubia, and we were talking about Queen Tiye here. And like and I'm sure you've seen this temple many times in terms of celebration of the divine feminine and our sisters. The temple of Solab, it's something that comes up quite often when you talk about Amenhotep III and Queen Tiye. Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
My brother Taki, I'm impressed. How many people have even heard of Solab? In fact, there's some things going on in Sudan right now. I did a presentation. I was a panelist for a presentation last week on Sudan called Sudan in Transition. And the first speaker was, he delivered a pre-recorded address, was the Prime Minister of Sudan. And then the next speaker was Congresswoman Karen Bass. And then we had the Sudanese ambassadors to Canada and the United States. And we had a number of significant people, and I was the last speaker. I was deliberately placed last. And I talked about the great temples of ancient Nubia. And one of the temples that came up was Solab. And I had a conversation with another scholar about it. Solab and Sadinga are two temple sites in northern Sudan. And they were for Amenhotep III and his significant other, Queen Tiye. So on my next tour to Sudan, which I hope will be 2022, we'll actually be able to visit some of those sites. And if I had thought about it, we'll do it next time, I'll show some of the artifacts that I photographed in the museums from Solab. So, yeah.
That's when we think of, just in terms of this discussion, I just wanted to illustrate to the viewers how the brothers at that time celebrated the sisters, and that temple demonstrates that. It's just like Abu Simbel. But okay. I think we'll get into that in a second because I don't want to get too far ahead. But you know what I mean? I figured because we're going in chronological order, so I figured, you're going to get to Abu Simbel soon. Yeah.
Well, let's see what we're going to do. Let's go. All right. Of course, this is one of the so-called Amarna princesses. This is one of the daughters of Akhenaten. I guess it would have been okay to say Amenhotep IV and Nefertiti. And then this one is in Munich, Germany. And this one, which you may have seen more of, is in Berlin. Oh man, these are, to me, just exquisite pieces of art. And then you can see the comparison here that I've done. So you have the one in Munich, Germany, and then you have next to it, juxtaposed, I guess is the word, an image of one of these Mangbetu women. One of the Mangbetu is a community of Africans in Central Africa, because a lot of people they obviously point out the heads, and some people say, oh, they must be aliens. I think one of the criticisms that I get sometimes, and I'm probably not the only person, people say you all talk about Egypt too much. I don't think we talk about Egypt. I don't think we talk about Kemet, the Nile Valley, the Happy Valley too much. I just think that we need to do a more effective job of connecting it with the rest of Africa. And so that's what I hope this photograph represents. Let me keep going. All from Dynasty 18, the hair. Now this is Queen Tiye. She's the most prominent royal figure in the 19th dynasty. And of course, this is Nefertari. So in the webinar last month, I actually showed images from Abu Simbel, but these are just images of Nefertari, who was a great royal wife, as you can see here, of Ramses the Great. I mean, he was really, really in love. These folk fell in love, and they were very romantic. That appeals to me. I mean, they wrote love poems, and they expressed that love. It was not a foreign concept. Often never did. This one I photographed in Glasgow, Scotland, of all places. This is Queen Keromama, I believe, from the 20th dynasty. And then you have these images right here that I photographed, even though I was explicitly forbidden from doing it, in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. I had a cell phone and nobody was looking. I said, let me go look at this sister right here. I could stop the presentation right now. If you are looking for evidence that these are African people, look, these are from dynasties 20 to 22. And then in the 25th dynasty, you have the divine spouse, a wife of Amen. You have a sister named Shepin-Wepet, and then another sister named Amenirtis. And these were the de facto rulers of Upper Kemet. And on my last trip to Egypt, I didn't know it until this particular trip, even though I visited before. I actually I knew this was a shrine, but they were actually buried in there. I found out by the local tomb attendants that they were buried down there. Brother, you know I wanted to go down there. The last queen of the 25th dynasty, I'm just going quickly now. Berdonk, the mother of Imhotep. This is Imhotep's mama. And we could compare her to these sisters in the Omo Valley in Ethiopia. This is what I mean by linking Kemet more effectively with the rest of Africa. Here's Cleopatra the seventh right here. Her son is behind her making offerings to goddess Sekhmet. These take us to Meroe, because even after Kemet fell, the Africans in the upper part of the Sudan, Nubia, were thriving. And these are all images from a sister, or this one is, from a queen mother Kandaka called Amani Shiketo. Nubia is the land of gold. Those look like cowrie shells at the bottom. So this is from the phase in Nile Valley history called Meroe, or the Meroitic period. I'm gonna spend a lot of time with this on Saturday, so I don't want to give away the whole store. But look, but this is one of my favorites. I gotta show this one. This is an unidentified Kandaka or queen mother in the center. This is from Meroe. And this picture I was able to photograph in a special exhibit. You will not be able to see this too often. And on each side of her are the two most prominent female aspects of God. One is Het-Heru, who we've talked about, and the other is Aset with the throne on top of her head. And this sister, this bad sister, is right in the center of these two. This is a kind of a holy trinity, you might say, but it has African women, and these are their pyramids. Look at these. Now, I've taken two groups here. This is the pyramid of Amani Shiketo. We're going to finish up. This is called Sheba's bath. This is in Aksum, Ethiopia. This is supposedly a bath of the Queen of Sheba. And this was where the palace of the Queen of Sheba, Makeda, was supposed to have been. This one takes us to Aksum, Ethiopia. And this is in Carthage in northern Africa. And this is the mother of the founder of the Mali Empire. Sogolon is her name. This is I think the idea. Anyway, this sister, this is a prominent woman in Yoruba society, actually the Edo. This takes us to Nigeria around the 16th century. All of our history is not confined to the Nile Valley. And look at this beautiful ivory mask. I'm almost done. This is Andromeda, a depiction of her. According to the Greeks, they named the Andromeda galaxy after an African woman, after an Ethiopian princess. And this is her. This is in Oxford. Here's a sister, Medea, not Tyler Perry's Medea. This is the original Medea, giving poison to the Greek hero Ulysses or Odysseus. So in Greek mythology, they knew a lot about African people, and Medea was a sorceress who gave poison to Odysseus or Ulysses after he's coming back from the Trojan War. I'm almost done. From ancient Italy, these are from England. This is called the Ivory Bangle Lady, a prominent African woman in 4th century England. These beautiful cameos from Italy. This is called the Beachy Head Woman. And this is a reconstruction of a skull of an African woman found in Sussex in England 1,700 years ago. So Meghan Markle is not the first prominent Black woman in the history of the UK. Speaking of which, this is a bit of a controversial figure. This is a portrait of Charlotte Sophia. If you watch the film or the miniseries Bridgertons, you have the Queen of England, Charlotte Sophia, a Black woman. Well, the tradition is that she had a Moorish ancestor. She is the mother, or she is the ancestor of Queen Victoria and the current royal family in England. And this is Charlotte Sophia. Charlotte, North Carolina is named after her. She was the Queen of England at the time of the American Revolution. Finish up, Runoko Rashidi. This is just a piece of art that I photographed of a enslaved African woman in Leipzig, Germany. And even though she has a rope around her, look at that look of defiance. This is an image of an African woman from the ancient Olmec world. You know, when I talk about the African presence in the Olmec, it's bound to get me in trouble. So be it. The Olmec civilization is the parent civilization of the Americas. This is identified as an Olmec goddess. Finally, resistance. We've gone from the most ancient times. Let's bring it up to modern times. This is an image of a sister known to history as Carlota Lucchini, who attempted to lead a revolt in Matanzas province in Cuba in 1843. Matanzas province was the most rebellious area for Africans in Cuba. And this is a sister called Solitude, who was a great resistance fighter in Guadeloupe, in the French Caribbean, the French Antilles. Of course, our sister Harriet Tubman. This one takes us to Suriname. And Suriname, colonized by the Dutch. The Dutch were probably the most cruel of all the slavers, and that's saying a lot. And this is a statue of a woman named Alida, who was the mother of the greatest resistance fighters in the history of Suriname and South America, especially a brother named Boney. Here I am in front of it. And next to last, here's an image, and this is related to something that I read about last night and today. Apparently, for just a second, there's a story coming out of Long Island, not far from the headmaster of a Catholic school, Martin de Porres, who resigned because he forced a Black child, a Haitian brother, little child, to kneel and said, "This is the African way to apologize." Well, the mother was very upset about that. But several things came out of that. One, St. Martin de Porres, who you see here, is the most prominent of the African saints in the Americas. That did not come out in the news article. Number two, the fact that he humiliated this child, and the mother was Haitian, and she was very upset, not just because, as I understood it, the child had been humiliated and forced to kneel, but in addition to that, she was upset because the child was identified as African. The headmaster said, "This is the African way to apologize." And according to the story, years ago, there was a Nigerian family that he had a relationship with. One of the children apparently attended the school. And he was saying that he didn't see it as being bad because, according to him, this is the way the Nigerians apologize. I wonder about that. But the Haitian mother seemed to be annoyed that her child was being identified as an African. She seemed to be saying, "We're a Haitian." And that says a lot about how we, even now, many of us see Africa and the sense of alienation. Anyway, this is appropriate because here I found in Peru, on one of my early trips to Peru, a church where you have a statue of St. Martin de Porres, but also an African female saint in Peru named Saint Iphigenia. And according to the tradition, she was an Ethiopian princess who converted to Catholicism. And so even in the Americas, even in the early periods of America, you have African women who are in an exalted status. And of course, if you want a lot of those photographs, I'll put in a shameless plug for my book, Beautiful World and Design, The Black Image in Antiquity. A lot of the pictures from Kemet, from the Nile Valley, are in that book. And you can go to my website, drrunoko.com, and purchase it. You can get information about the webinar this weekend. You can even get information about the upcoming tours to Ghana and Egypt this summer. And that, my brother Tiye, is my presentation for tonight.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that, sir. It was, as usual, you can't really put it in words in terms of where it stacks up. It was a fantastic presentation. I just want to make sure we get the website information up there so that people can go and get the book and sign up for the trip and other information that's out. Before we let you go, I do have a couple of things I want to talk to you about. Just you mentioned during the presentation the influence of the divine feminine in Europe.
Yeah.
And just how that shaped Europe and shaped world civilization. And a lot of stories we get come from that, particularly the temples of Osset that were just discovered. You wrote an article years ago, African Goddesses, Mothers of Civilization.
Yeah.
Yes. What inspired you to write that?
How did that come about? That was like way back in 1982. And I was beginning to develop a relationship with the great Ivan van Sertima. I had already written an article and had it published in a book called Egyptian History Revised. And that was the first time I had an article posted in Dr. Van Sertima's works. At that time, what we call the Journal of African Civilization was literally that, a journal. And Ivan, we know from they came before Columbus, but Ivan also was the founding editor of a publication called the Journal of African Civilizations. And they turned out 2, maybe 3 books a year. So I ended up writing an article on the African presence in ancient Iraq and Iran. And Ivan liked my writing style. So he says, Runoko, it's important that we do a book on Black women in antiquity, and I want you to be a part of it. This is how I recall it anyway. And I said, yeah. And so, yeah, there you go. And that's not a first edition, by the way.
I figured that.
That's a later edition. So I said, yeah. So I wrote an article. And somehow it ended up on these goddesses. I guess that I was just finding a lot of information about them. And even then, 1982, I loved Black women and I wanted to pay tribute to them. So he said, you wrote a good article. We're going to publish it. He says, well, we have a problem. I said, what? He said, 2 other women, in fact, Rosalind Jeffries is in that book too, Dr. Rosalind Jeffries. And Sonia Sanchez has a poem on Nefertiti, and Charles Finch is in there. So he says, somebody else wrote an article also on Isis. And he says, I don't want there to be overlap. So I'm going to send you her article. I won't tell you her name. And edit it and look at it and make sure you don't have any conflicts and all that stuff. So not only did I look at the article, I edited the article. And Ivan was astonished. He says, wow, I didn't know you were going to do all that. And that is how our bond was really cemented. And I started working on all the issues of the journal, as an editor and a writer. But that's how that came about.
A good friend of ours, also Camille Yarbrough, has an article.
Exactly.
In that book as well. But no, it's fantastic.
I love Camille Yarbrough.
Yeah, she's been a huge supporter from day one, from times of the Nubia documentary, the Tekken, and she's traveled with me to Kemet several times. But definitely one of the great elders who supported the path and the work that we've done.
She's traveled with you to Kemet several times?
Yes.
Wow, my brother.
Yeah,
lucky you, man.
Lucky me.
No, she's a powerful, and she's brilliant.
Absolutely.
Oh, you're blessed.
We're gonna have her on the show soon.
Okay. All right.
Definitely gonna have her on the show soon. But this book and that article, it opened the door for certain things, and I wanted to kind of discuss this, like the Palermo stone, and the tracing the lineage through the mothers. And that's significant. But I'd like you to elaborate on that if you can, please.
Why would you connect the Palermo stone with that? Why would you bring up the Palermo stone? Of all the things to bring up, why that?
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but, in terms of just when they started to trace their lineage, they wouldn't look in terms of their fathers. They would try to put their mothers and, mothers down in that document, in that basic stone document. And that's so significant, and I just really, really, want to bring credence to that.
So you're saying that you find evidence of that in particular in the Palermo stone?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Well, listen, in fact, I could be mistaken there. But
no,
I know
I'm not saying you're mistaken. I'm not saying you're wrong. It's just that how many people do I get a chance to talk to about the Palermo stone? I mean, how many people have even heard of the Palermo stone? And so the fact that you bring it up is, I love it, brother.
I just, and one of the things here, and I got to bring this back a little bit because some people may be like, well, what the hell is that? So there were several kings lists in ancient Kemet. The most famous is in Abydos, but the other ones, Palermo stone being another one, where they actually had the lineage of all the rulers.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular one had the rulers with their mothers, and it's so significant. And I just want the esteemed scholar here to really kind of touch on that a little bit, because it goes into this presentation here where we're talking about women in antiquity, and it really kind of ties it together.
Well, I don't know about the esteemed scholar, but Runoko Rashidi will certainly comment on it. I didn't know that the Palermo stone showed the kings with their mothers. Now, that's new for me. We do know that the line of descent in Kemet is traced to the female side of the family. Now, the Palermo stone, I believe, dates from, I think, the 5th dynasty. And it gets its name because it's housed in a museum in Palermo, Sicily. So naturally, I went to Sicily and I went to see the Palermo stone, and the museum had been closed for a long time with no signs that it was going to open up. And so I just think that it deserves a lot more research, but I did not know until right now that this is a document where you have the kings listed alongside their mothers. Is that what you're saying, brother?
Yeah, and
wow, that's deep. I love it.
I even can actually go to, my bookshelf here, because I'm like, damn, I could be wrong. It's been so long. But
well, the very fact that something like that would exist is profound. We cannot say enough, and I know you feel the same way. We cannot pay enough homage to Black women. And so anytime I find a historic document like that, or even hear of something like that, I get pumped up.
No, absolutely. We have to. And this story and like books like Black Women in Antiquity shaped my consciousness and helped direct me to.
Well, how did you get turned on to that book? Let's shift this here.
I don't even remember. I don't remember. I've had the book for, I don't know, like 20 some odd years, and someone, probably a friend of a friend or a relative, someone.
No, those books, that one in particular, it brings back a lot of memories. As a matter of fact, in the edition that you have, my first wife has an article in there. So that book, brother, I had a lot to do with that book. And you mentioned Sister Camille and Dr. Jeffries, and I mentioned Sonia Sanchez. If I'm not mistaken, John Henry Clark has an article in that book.
Yes, amongst many. So definitely one of the greats. Sister Elise, you got time for any questions from the audience? I don't know if we have any. I don't have my display here in front of me in terms of seeing any questions, but if we do have some, would you mind taking a few?
Is that directed at me or Felicia?
You.
Of course. Are you kidding? Of course, my brother. I live for these moments, man.
I don't know. People kind of asking about the noses. I don't know if you want to touch on that. I know you kind of.
No. Let's do the noses another time, because we want to do that justice.
Okay.
I think that we covered a lot. There's always what? What is the question?
It sounds like someone wants you to talk about Charlotte.
All right. Well, Charlotte Sophia is the Queen of England at the time of the American Revolution. She's the wife of King George III. They had together 14 or 15 children. I believe that she was actually born in Germany, and she was brought to England as a young queen. They got married. They had a long relationship. Again, she's portrayed in this miniseries on, I don't know if it's Netflix, Amazon.com, I don't want to promote them, called The Bridgertons. And she was a historical figure. Now, the controversy is, how much African blood did she really have? And also, it brings to mind, what is an African? Now, she comes to us, I think, from around, let's say, 1760 to about 1820. And her Moorish ancestor comes to us in the 16th century. So she would be about 8 or 10 generations removed from that. So it calls into question African identity. What is an African? And this is an issue that I've been grappling with and probably will be for the rest of my life. If we can trace all modern humanity to Africa, a better issue might be who is not an African and what constitutes African identity. Brother Tiye, I've been doing this work for 48 years. And I've traveled all over the world, as you know. I've written, I've talked to some of the greatest scholars we've ever had. And even now, I don't have a clear definition of what an African is. What do Africans look like? Can white people be African? What about those people in North Africa that we call Arab? The Black communities that I deal with in Australia, the Pacific Islands, in India, is it proper to call them African? What is an African? Are all Black people African? Are all African Black people? These are fundamental questions that I have not really been able to come up with a precise definition. I am prepared to say that we all have an African ancestor and that the people I consider African are the ones who are phenotypically Black. But that's also, problematic. Perhaps because of the world in which we live, we have become so obsessed with race. We've had no choice, but I don't know.
You brought up a good question here that I do have. I want to talk about a little bit. And you alluded to this a little earlier. We're talking about the Olmecs, the parent civilization of the Americas. And since our first discussion, almost maybe about 8 months ago, when we did that marvelous presentation on the African presence in early America, wow, there's been so much interest in that video. And one of the things that come out of it the most is who and what the Olmecs were in terms of race. And no other people kind of forgot about everything else that was said there, but that seems to be the number one thing. And most of the comments we get is related directly to that. And I just want to kind of revisit that again in terms of the Olmecs and who they were, and maybe where they originated from, and hate to use the term race, but who were they?
All right. Well, I would propose perhaps next month, if you have the time, we revisit. I mean, of course, I'm going to respond to your questions, but maybe we do a fuller presentation on that.
Absolutely.
Where I show a lot more of the pictures. Because when people say they weren't African, that makes me all the more adamant about who they were. So let's go over that just briefly. And maybe next month, if you're game, we can do it again and we'll just throw down the gauntlet. First of all, what is the Olmec civilization? And why is it important to us? The Olmec civilization is important to us because it's the parent civilization of the Americas. All the other civilizations, the Maya, the Inca, the Aztec, Zapotec, Toltec, they all come much later. So the Olmec civilization is the parent civilization of the Americas. It began around in its earliest stages about 2000 BC. And I would say that it comes to an end around 300 BC. The Olmec introduced organized government, calendars, astronomy, advanced farming techniques, all of those things, even organized sport. All of those things seem to have been introduced by the Olmec. So who are the Olmec? Now, it's my argument, and it was Dr. Van Sertima's argument, I want everybody to hear this, that the Olmec civilization was a Native American civilization. Now, we have not spent time talking about what those Native Americans look like. But what stands out most about the Olmec civilization are 20 massive stone heads, one of which weighs 100,000 pounds. I am the only person that I know personally that has visited every one of those heads, photographed them on multiple occasions, including the head with the braids, including the head with the tassels in the back, okay? So I know Olmec. All of the heads, some even more than others, have what I consider African features. They look like you. They look like Black people. And I would say that those features come as a result not of Native Americans at all, but of a voyage of Africans who sailed by accident or design from Africa across the Atlantic and ended up in the Olmec world and transformed it. And that is what I think those heads represent. They represent, I'm convinced, one of two things. One, either this was the Olmec perception of God, or that these heads, and this is where I lean, are representations of a dynasty of African kings who ruled over ancient Mexico. Now, people will say, Runoko Rashidi, you're taking our civilization away from us. What I say is this: let me show you a picture of an Olmec head. And if you don't see a Black person in that head, we need to just stop talking. Now, you can say it's a Native American, or you can say it's a brother from the Nile Valley, but that's a Black man. One of the heads is nicknamed Joe Louis. The first person who dug up a head or who identified a head was a Mexican scholar named Jose Melgar. He said it looked Ethiopian. The first head that was excavated, it was described as having Ethiopian features. These were by Mexican and by European scholars. So if you want to get mad at somebody, get mad at them. So there's no doubt in my mind that there's a prominent African presence in the Olmec world, but that's not enough, or that's not all, because there are other artifacts and historical documents that show an African presence in America beyond the Olmec. So the Olmec is not the only presence of Africans in the Americas. And we need to know this. Mexicans need to know it. All Latinos need to know it. Africans need to know that our history in the Americas didn't start with slavery. We ain't having that. And if you want to get mad, that's all right with me. That's your problem. But we know for a fact that Africans came to America first. They're the first people to set foot on the shores of America. They impacted classical American civilization. And we know that everybody came to America before Columbus. But the ones who came, who exercised the most influence, were African. And that the African who came to America did not come as slave. He came as master in control of his own destiny. And so that's how we're going to look at it. We're going to look at Black people as the first people in the Americas, Africans in their role in classical American civilization, the enslavement period, and then resistance to enslavement, and then the African presence in the Americas today. That's the 5 chapters of the African presence in the Western Hemisphere.
You heard, guys, you heard it here. We're coming back with the African presence in early America, part 2. We'll do that sometime next month. We're definitely going to set a date in the calendar for that one. We just have one last question. Someone from the audience asked that, Felicia, could you put it back on the screen? It's something about the mounds, and it went up kind of quickly. The pyramid mounds in America. I just want to get the exact question. There it is from Hedherdu Nefakara. Can you address the pyramids or mounds in America?
It's not something that I studied enough.
Okay.
Here's what I would say, and I guess I can wind down with this. I would say that the majority of the history of African people, particularly in the diaspora, has not been written. And it is up to us to write that without stuttering, without stammering, without whispering, and without feeling the need to apologize. Only we can write our history. And that's our job. We say all the time, they lied to us, we were bamboozled, they didn't tell us. Okay, now it's our job. We cannot entrust our history to other people. And so the mounds in North America are part of the history that I think needs to be explored. There's so many chapters. And at this point, I would say it's not necessary to have all the answers. Perhaps what is most important is to begin to say, these are the most important questions that we should begin to ask. And these are the issues that we need to address. And the mounds in North America, I put in that category.
Thank you so much for that. Everyone, before you go, we're definitely winding down. Make sure you like this video, get the likes up, and please share it. Essentially, you got to share it. This is powerful information heard here at HAPI Talks. Definitely go to runoko.com. Please put up the website again and sign up, get the copy of the books that the esteemed elder has. No, he doesn't like esteemed scholar, but I'm going to give you that. go to the website, and it's so important. Sign up for that. Support the elder. We're all about heartbeat props here and all about support. So definitely want to do that. Also, the webinar this weekend. Go to eventbrite.com and put in Runoko and sign up for the tickets for the powerful webinar. And the name of the webinar again, Dr. Rashidi?
The webinar is called Journey to Nubia. And it's going to be very, very, very good. I figure I'll show 500-600 original photographs from the museums, from the tombs, from the temples. And I'll kind of summarize what we've been doing the last few months. And I'll end with the Black Christ. It's comforting to me to know that some people historically, when they did portray God, they portrayed God in the form of an African. And so we'll end on that note. Maybe we can begin to look at the God in ourselves and attempt to be more God-like. And all of that is a part of our empowerment process. And HAPI Talks is such an important part of that. So again, our brother Tiye, sister Felicia, thank you for allowing me the honor to be on this show. And y'all just keep on doing what you're doing. We love you. And the community, I believe, has your back.
Thank you, sir. You can hang out a little bit, close up the show, and say good night to everyone. And I'll see you backstage.
Hotel.
Peace, everyone. Thanks for joining us again. Powerful discussion. Before you go, again, please make sure you subscribe to the channels. Please share this video. So essential to what it is, the work that we're doing. For those, again, who have not seen HAPI, do yourself a favor and make sure you go see it. You won't be disappointed. You got to get the DVD. You got to get the digital copy. More importantly, stay in touch with us. We have the newsletter that comes out every month. And so a lot of people that are getting involved with that. It's a community affair. And we definitely want to make sure that, you know, everyone is celebrated. We're not a community affair. We are in HAPI with us. One of the things we strive for is the unity piece. And there's so many organizations that's doing work. And for us to align with these different organizations are essential, like APIL, Federal Credit Union. You know, we have the Black Silk Yoga Studio coming on talking about health. So there's so many different things that are really, really developing now here at HAPI. But there are other ways, again, to support. I just want to also give a shout out with that in mind. People who donated the super chat tonight. I saw several names up there. Sorry I didn't mention your name. We put the names up on the screen there. All those who did the Cash App, I'm sorry I didn't get notifications, but definitely the support is real, and we want to say thank you for that. You know, that's pretty much it for me tonight. And we see you guys again. Actually, the next HAPI Talks we have is Dr. Molefe Asante on April 5th. Please stay tuned for that. That's going to be a powerful discussion, and it's going to be a series of discussions we'd like to have about the transatlantic slave trade. And the reason why we're going to talk about that, because there's so much misinformation going on in our community right now, or different beliefs in terms of the existence that has happened, and so forth and so on. So we're going to bring in our best minds to address that. And we're going to start it with Dr. Molefe Asante. We'll go down the list, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, all those who spent time studying this subject. We're going to get down to the nitty gritty of that. With that said, I want to bid everyone a good night, peace, hotep, and I'll see you soon.
I don't know what we can talk about in this nation without talking about white superiority, honestly.
Who defines the meaning of God also defines the relationship between economy and God.
African Americans spent $1.3 trillion last year, making us the 16th wealthiest nation in the world. Why have we not turned those riches into wealth to develop our community?